No one that's running outbound campaigns at Understory is running paid social ads.
Hey, Danielle from Exit 5 here. Today I'm talking with Alex Fine, the co-founder of Understory and honestly one of the smartest people I know when it comes to outbound and paid media. We talked about this concept he calls Allbound, which is basically the smarter, more integrated way to run outbound paid and LinkedIn without spamming people or wasting a ton of money.
So now it's become a very complex task to do outbound efficiently and effectively. And you have to use all of these different tools that don't necessarily integrate with the existing tech stack you used to use.
Alex breaks down what's actually working in cold email right now, why most ad accounts are set up wrong, and how to get way more targeted and personalized with your outreach without it taking a million hours.
Your ICP is honed in on, your targeting is great, your messaging is great, people are actually appreciating getting your emails.
If you're a B2B marketer who wants your campaigns to actually convert and not just look good, you better make time to listen to this one today. Let's get into the episode.
1, 2, 3, 4. Exit.
I am so excited to have you on the show, Alex. So this is Alex Fine. He is a friend who I've actually worked with in the past, at the past companies. His co-founded agency, Understory, has run ads for me and done a bunch of stuff. So we're excited to have you on today, Alex.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. It's always good to connect with you.
Yeah, this is awesome. So I'm excited to jump into our convo today, but I want to talk about Understory because they drove such good results for us. And you guys are just blowing up and I see you everywhere. And you guys haven't been around that long, right? It's like not even 2 years yet.
So funny enough, we started actually 3 years ago, but I would say 2 years ago, the business really picked up. And partially in turn to you, by the way, going to these events like SaaS Open and stuff like that, it actually got us into a really good place. And we started to connect with the right people. The services got better and more robust. They became more productized. And we honed in on what we were good at. And we've grown a ton in the last 2 years. So that's why it seems like that.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome to see. I love it. I love seeing good people with good products start to grow, which is cool.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So you have kind of a unique take, or maybe it's just one of those things that's always been, but you've named it called Allbound that you've talked about. So tell me about Allbound. What the hell is it? What does it mean? I see it on LinkedIn. Tell me more.
So Allbound really isn't a new principle when you think about it. I mean, it's similar to lifecycle marketing, right? It's like, so finding your ICP wherever they exist. I think what's changed a lot is the way that each of these channels actually work. So like I'll use email as an example because everyone knows that cold email used to be a super hot button you could press and you could basically—
You don't mean it's dead?
Huh?
Cold email's not dead?
No, I don't think it's dead. That's why we make so much, we have so many businesses that are working with us to generate results through cold email and it's working like crazy. Like some of our clients, they might have an ACV of $100,000. We might get them 3 or 4 leads in a day. So it's like, it definitely works. But what I'm saying is with Outbound in particular, it works a totally different way than it used to. And these tools, and I won't name drop any tools. The last thing I want to do is bash anybody, but there's these tools out there that used to work in the old way of outbound that no longer work. So now it's become a very complex task to do outbound efficiently and effectively. And you have to use all of these different tools that don't necessarily integrate with the existing tech stack you used to use, right? So you have tools like I said, I won't name drop them, but the ones that integrate directly with your CRM where they help you push data into other places, those ones don't have deliverability functions. And deliverability is the name of the game right now. If you can't deliver into the primary inbox, no one ever sees your message. So you can't actually generate any leads because if you're in spam, no one knows who the heck you are. No one knows what you're emailing about because they never see your email. So you have to use tools like Instantly or go ahead.
Yeah, you can name drop tools. That's totally fine. I think we know our audience loves to find new tools that give them an edge. So feel free to name drop.
I'll talk about the good ones for sure.
Yeah. And I want to kind of hone in on what you said about deliverability being the name of the game right now, especially with cold. Because I feel like, every day I see a meme on LinkedIn of the bad cold emails you get. I am particularly vicious with marking spam. So what would you say about deliverability? What do people get wrong in this new kind of day and age? And how can you improve that for better results?
Yeah, I mean, so the fundamentals, right, of landing in the primary inbox. Don't use links, don't use images, things like that. Things that can be picked up by a spam filter and determine this could potentially be harmful. This could potentially be phishing. This could potentially be something like that. Even when you add open tracking or click tracking to an email, something like that, what it does essentially is just throws a pixel into the email. That pixel is read the same way as a link. It can be used to steal your information, something like that. So that's, red flag number one. Don't put anything that can be determined as a link that could potentially be used for harmful stuff or phishing, anything like that. That's problem number one. But two, the way that all these spam filters work, it's getting more and more complex and it changes on a daily basis. But think about it like this. You've got companies like Google, right? Everyone uses G Suite for the most part in the startup world is their email client, right? And then you've got the bigger companies that are using Outlook. Both companies are playing very heavily in AI. If they're using AI and they're serving products to the world with their AI, why would they not be internally too to identify spam? So they are. The issue is every spam filter acts in a different way. So Microsoft spam filter might act completely differently than Gmail spam filter, right? So you have to figure out ways to get around those spam filters. And sometimes it's the length of the copy. It's the specific words you're using. It's the amount of HTML that you're using or not using. It can be a ton of different stuff. So being able to get around that and navigate through the deliverability traps that exist everywhere is key number one. So for us, for example, we use tools like Instantly and SmartLead, which have all of the functionality available for you to get through those spam filters. So whether that's ESP matching, sending Outlook emails to Outlook inboxes, Gmail emails to Gmail inboxes, things like that can make a big difference. The volume of emails that you send. And the reason for the volume of the emails that you send being important, if you're sending 10 emails from one inbox, and you just said you like to mark people as spam. So let's say I send to 10 people, 9 of 10 don't mark me as spam, but 1 does, right? Or maybe if I'm only sending 10 emails from that domain in a day and I get 2 spam complaints in a day or something like that, then Gmail is going to say, okay, you got 2 out of 10, 20% of the people that you reached out to just marked you as spam. You might be a spammer. So what you do is you diversify your email infrastructure. So you send across multiple different inboxes. And by doing that, you diversify your risk as well. So if you have one inbox that gets crushed from deliverability because 2 people marked you as spam, but then you have another one that no one marked you as spam because your ICP is honed in on, your targeting is great, your messaging is great, people are actually appreciating getting your emails, you're in a much better place. But you need to diversify your infrastructure across multiple different clients as well as multiple different inboxes and domains.
Yeah. So something you said is interesting about like getting around the spam filter. So what would you see is a difference between like a genuine, like cold email that is actually genuinely written, relevant, helpful, and the ones that like actually are spam? I said I'm vicious, but like if it's a really good cold email and it's, I can tell it's an actual person on the other end, the ones I'm like vicious with are like when it's clearly copying and pasted from like different parts of my LinkedIn, like you can tell it was a mass send, it's not relevant, or they're like jerks when following up and they're like, well, I guess like keeping your job isn't of interest to you.
Oh
And I'm
my
like,
God.
I know your stupid little psychology hacks. Like,
Yeah, those are funny. No, I mean, the key really, us, we're huge Clay users. We're Clay power users. We're a Clay enterprise partner. Clay is our baby. We love it. But everything that we do is in Clay, and that's how we really avoid that ever happening. So our segmentation targeting is on point. It's like we use all different types of triggers. We can do social signals. We can do really whatever you can think of. And we build triggers around that with custom scrapes to find out exactly who's within our ICP and find messaging that's actually relevant to them. So we can do things like identify whether or not a company is growing. If a company is growing, they might need more resources for X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. It depends on the customer that we're working with. But it's really about making sure that you're reaching out to the right people at the right time and you're sending the right message. So you've got I know a lot of these people, but you've got the people out there that are like, I don't care. I'm just going to send 2 million emails a month. Hope something sticks. Even if I have a 0.1% reply rate, if I send that many emails, surely I'll get some leads, and you're just blowing everyone up. You're causing the problem. So we don't do that. We're I like to say this all the time. I post it on LinkedIn all the time, but we are not a volume agency. We're very targeted, specific. And it's because so many people complain about this stuff, and rightfully so. My inbox looks insane. So yeah, I totally hear you.
Yeah. In my last position, and even in this one, just having like head of something in your title is the worst. I'm like, I want to change it to something that no one wants to sell to because the targeting can just be so bad. But no, that was our experience with you guys too. And I think I posted something recently and like we joke of like, cold emails dead and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, just like the shittiest version of it dies quickly because someone figures out it could work and ruins it.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's the spray and pray stuff. It's been the problem since email started as a channel, right? There's always been the spray and prayers, and they're not going anywhere, and it's becoming more and more sophisticated, and people are just finding ways to send more and more emails. So
yeah,
you got to get around it.
Email is just one piece of what you're talking about, right?
Yep.
Like this Allbound concept. So what else? Like, how does it work? What else is in there? How does it work together? And why is it, something to look at in 2025?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, the goal is for you to be able to identify the entire buyer journey, everything that happens in the cycle that influences step 1, step 2, step 3, and then get someone to actually convert on your service or product. So when we say Allbound, typically what you do, like, for example, you've worked with us on the paid media side. So, we'll run ads. So for example, we might have a LinkedIn ad going, a branded search ad going on Google, an outbound campaign, and we're doing LinkedIn outreach, all simultaneously, all in a cohesive way. So the way it might work, and this is a real example that we've seen with many clients, and we've also seen happen many times within each client. We might send an email to somebody. That email gets logged in HubSpot, right? Attached to a contact record, a work email, a personal email, wherever we sent it, right? So if we send that email, that gets logged into HubSpot. Next thing is they might see a LinkedIn ad. They might be served an ad specific to their job title in an ABM campaign, something like that. They click on the ad. Maybe they even fill out a form, but they don't actually convert into a meeting, anything like that. There's some sort of drop off somewhere. Then what they end up doing maybe a day later is they get a second email because they never responded to the first one, or 2 or 3 days later. And they say, oh, I actually just saw an ad. I never followed up with that company. I saw the first email. It was actually really interesting. They go and search your company on Google. They search it, get with a branded search ad. They click that, they convert, they fill out a form, they book a demo, something like that. That entire journey is now tracked in like a HubSpot. And you can see every single little thing that influenced one another directly in chronological order. So you can see the timelines for when these events happened, what steps were taken, and how it all looks. That's Allbound in a nutshell. The key is being able to do all of these different channels effectively. Like I said, email is not the same as it used to be. You have to figure out all these integrations. You have to stitch things together. You have to get creative in terms of deliverability, in terms of the sequencing tools, everything. You have to make sure also you have some sort of identifier. So if you're using a personal email or a work email, you need to be able to have that information within HubSpot. Otherwise, it's not going to tie to the same contact, right? So you have to get really creative in the way you do that. And most of that work is done with Clay for the enrichment piece to make sure you have that unique identifier, whether it's a contact ID, a work email, a personal email, whatever it is, to map all of that stuff back to that individual or that company. So I spoke really fast at you, but that's Allbound.
No, it's great. And I think something important you said is the consistency between channels. And can you tell a little bit more about that, of like how you kind of tell the same story through the email, the served LinkedIn ad, maybe the LinkedIn message, the other things that you're doing, and how does that play into the effectiveness of this strategy?
Yeah, so you actually didn't get a chance to work with us in this way, but we work in pods. So we have specialists on every single channel. No one that's running outbound campaigns in Understory is running paid social ads or paid search ads. And no one that's running paid social is running paid search. They're all unique skills. So it does become hard to keep that cohesive message when you have multiple different people working on multiple different campaigns. It's not in a silo because we work in pods, but it's all about collaboration. So everyone's working together to align on the messaging before anything actually gets pushed live. So we make sure that the campaigns are cohesive, the timelines are cohesive, when you're serving an ad, when you're sending an email, when you're sending a LinkedIn message, things like that. And you also have to treat every channel differently. With email, you want to keep your message short, punchy, concise, provocative, and relevant, but you also are able to tell a little bit more about what your product actually is or what your product does, right? You don't want to be hard selling people, but you are able to give people some context. LinkedIn, you have a good following on LinkedIn. I have a pretty good following on LinkedIn. Can't imagine someone like Dave, but my inbox is blown up every single day on LinkedIn. I probably get, no exaggeration, at least 10 random messages a day trying to sell me something on LinkedIn. So how do you cut the noise, right? So you have to have some sort of really relevant, punchy message that's not selling you at all. Never hard sell on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a totally different channel. LinkedIn is designed to be very conversational, right?
Yeah, no one likes a pitch slap.
No one wants a pitch slap. And if you have a message that's longer than 2 lines, and the first time you ever send someone a message, you're instantly getting deleted. I'm not even reading it. I'm not reading past the second line. I'm closing that out, right? And most people are fighting with this at the same time. So it's like, really, how can you cut through the noise, send something that's punchy, send something that's just thought provoking and, just a genuine question, start a conversation. And then any person that's good at selling knows once you have that initial in, you can weave your way through, start the conversation, move into a sales cycle, get people interested. And yeah, you have to treat every channel differently. So it's really about creating a cohesive message that you can use across multiple different channels, but framing it in a way that's unique to each individual channel.
Yeah. We have Smarter Network, Tass Bober. She's like a landing page expert. And one of the tips that she's always stood out to, and it's one of those things where it's like, I see how it happens as a marketer when you have like a million things going on, is that the actual like ad that runs to the landing page, the messages aren't in sync. So obviously I'm going to click out of it because I'm like, if I click on one thing expecting it, but then I'm driven to this other link. And I think obviously the more variables you add in, the more likely that is to happen because you're trying to get things done. So I think the pods is really smart and something that like even marketers can learn from here.
Totally. It's the only way to have quality control. So if you're not working together in tandem and everyone's working in a silo, you are going to have that disjointed messaging. So you have to work in a pod.
Yeah. So what are you seeing work in B2B right now specifically? Like where would you invest?
It depends on
Obviously
the vertical.
it's different,
Or it depends on it depends on the segment within B2B. So like in B2B services, we see ads work a lot better. This is where the spam stuff, by the way, becomes a problem. B2B services, because services can be so all encompassing and you can sell to such a mass market. You have people that are sending millions and millions and millions of emails on behalf of their service. So I'll be honest, it does work. It's one of those games though, where you send so many emails and then surely something's going to stick, right? That's, it works. But for companies like that, highly recommend ads. It depends on the services that you're actually in. Everything is bespoke. I mean, it's not a one size fits all approach. You have to have a bespoke account plan based on your ICP, your value proposition, things like that. So I don't want to say one thing works particularly well for one segment. With B2B SaaS, we crush it with ads. But at the same time, like I said, we have some clients, if we're able to get really granular on the ICP, find relevance. I can use an example here. Email can crush it. And then LinkedIn, in terms of efficiency, I mean, if you're really good at copywriting, like, you and I both know someone who's excellent at copywriting, and that stuff converts extremely well, especially if you have a strong presence on LinkedIn or using the right profiles. It can make a massive difference. I'd say in terms of efficiency, LinkedIn outreach is huge. Tools like HeyReach can make a massive difference in your ability to generate pipeline. The issue you run into with LinkedIn is it's a volume game, or it's not a volume game, right? So it's like you can only send maybe 20 messages in a day, something like that, to keep your account from being at risk of being blocked or banned. So with that said, it's very efficient, but you can't send a lot of volume. So you need to be extremely targeted. Email is super efficient. You just have to do it the right way. You have to be able to personalize and stay relevant and have a very tight list. And then ads, oh my God, ads are a cheat code. So you've seen that firsthand. But I'll give you an example.
So I want to talk about ads. Ooh, go. Okay.
Go ahead. I was going to give you an example of email, because email is one of those things everyone says outbound's dead. It's all over LinkedIn. It's like, we have the data in front of us every day. We get Slack notifications every day that just disprove that. But anyways, we see it all the time. So like, I'll give you an example. And this is one of my favorite clients, actually an old friend of ours too. But they sell a product. It is a SaaS company that helps you fight return fraud. So people who are basically weaponizing return fraud in Telegram groups or, subreddits, like these little niche, like communities where people are just doing bad stuff. So they stop bad actors, they catch this stuff, and then they use that as their messaging, right? It's like, hey, we found your company, your exact name, in a return fraud group where they're weaponizing return fraud and just committing fraud on you guys, right? And we say, we have the screenshots because we do. And people are like, oh my God, send the screenshot over. What's happening? We've been noticing an uptick in return fraud or returns that show up and then people send a box with a rock in the box. So they say, send it. We send it. Boom, there's the end. It's like, thank you so much. You just helped me figure out exactly where the source of this is coming from. How do you guys help us prevent it? Stuff like that works extremely well on the outbound side. And you're actually doing a major service for these companies. They're super happy because not only did you identify a problem through whatever web scraping you're doing, but you give us a solution to fix it too. So it's action-oriented problem solving. So that makes a huge difference for clients like that. And like I said, they have a high ACV and they're booking anywhere from 4 to 7 leads a week on average. But recently it's been more like 3 or 4 a day.
Yeah. Well, because I think the important thing is like you're actually offering them, like you said, value. Like, hey, you guys showed up here. Like, you might want to check this out, flag this. And especially if that's actually corresponding to what they're seeing. So that's just like really great
And
targeting and
that's what I mean. It's all about the
personalization.
list. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Personalization, not in the sense of like, oh, your first name is in the subject line and we know that you're the, head of risk at whatever B2B or B2C e-commerce company, and it's so generic. And that's something I want to talk about is actual personalization and how you guys go about doing that. And obviously it's different from client to client and ICP to ICP, but is there like a framework or process you follow to get genuine personalization that goes beyond like first name, job title, the college you went to, and the mascot?
Yep, totally. And it comes from very, very deep research. And it's agentic research. It's not like us going and researching every single individual prospect, right? It's like we build these workflows that can identify whatever is relevant to that individual persona based on their job title, based on research we've done on their company, things like that, to find those variables. Like I'll use the example of the same company because I have permission to use them. So I'll use them as an
No, it's a
example.
good example. It's interesting.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too. When we first took them on, I knew we'd be able to generate leads for them, but I didn't know the velocity in which we'd be able to generate leads for them. And I've been very, very pleasantly surprised because, like I said, they're also old friends. So, I'm thinking the whole time, like, I don't want to lose my friend if this doesn't work out for them. And I know this is a tough issue to crack into, but no, we've been very pleasantly surprised. But what we're doing for them in terms of personalization. So what we'll do is they sell to e-commerce retailers, right? So think big companies, like big companies. Like I can't name drop their companies, but name brands that you know and love, right? If you're sending emails to these people, what you can do is you can identify, what an average sale price might be based on the items on their website, based on what's at the top of the page, based on what's they're sponsoring, things like that. So let's say I'll use the reference of pickleball paddles, right? Pickleball paddle, I don't know, it's $50, $200 on average. Let's say based on the research that you've done, you think they probably sell 100,000 pickleball paddles a year, something like that. Out of those, we know about 2% of those are returned based on fraudulent returns or something like that. Someone says, use it for a month and they say, I don't want this anymore. I'm going to return it and get all my money back, right? Totally against the return policies, but they're going to do it anyways. This company's going to have excellent customer service. They're going to take care of them. So what we do is we say, okay, looks like your primary product that you're selling is this. Looks like you sell on average about 100,000 of them. If 2% of those are being returned fraudulently, you're missing out on X number of dollars annually in return fraud. That's the level of personalization that we'll do. By the way, here's how I calculated that number. Let me know if I'm off. Something like that. The reason I'm reaching out is because we've been seeing company or Telegram groups weaponizing your return policies and committing fraud against you guys. Not sure if you've seen this internally, if you've seen a spike recently. By the way, more than happy to send a screenshot of the exact Telegram group we found this in. Something like that. And then people are like, oh my, well, your numbers, sometimes like your numbers are great. I can't believe you calculated this. And sometimes they say, you're actually way off, but I appreciate you letting us know about the Telegram group. Send us a screenshot. They review it. They're like, oh my God, you weren't kidding. This is crazy. And then they're like, can we book a call? You guys help us solve this problem. So that's the level of personalization that we'll actually end up doing for clients like that.
Yeah. And you're using, so you said you use like agentic. That's a new word, isn't it? Agentic research.
Yeah, it's a fancy one. I hope I'm saying it right. But
I've never said it before. So
it's basically what we do is we build AI agents in Clay and we just have them run. We have multiple different steps in every single Clay table that we do. So like find this, find this, find this. Once you found that, extrapolate the information from this one, and come up with this formula. So something like that. And we do it, like I said, it's totally bespoke depending on the client that we're working with. But in that case, like that's the method that we're using. And it's working so well because people are like I said, they're either, your numbers are actually pretty close. I'm impressed that you're able to calculate that. Please send the Telegram group. Let us know how you can help. Or they say your numbers are way off, but we're interested regardless because this is a problem that we're seeing, something like that. But the fact that we were able to, one, find these companies in some sort of fraud groups or something like that. Two, show that we're trying to do the research to actually calculate the amount of money that they could be saving if they can fix this problem, something like that. They just appreciate the level of research that actually went into that. Whether it's us doing it or not, they're like, wow, whatever you did is very sophisticated and you're actually solving a genuine problem that needs to be solved immediately, like yesterday. So yeah, that's what's working for us.
That's the difference between, hey, Danielle, saw you went to Northeastern, go Huskies. See, you're also head of marketing. Do you care about SEO? And
No, I don't give a shit about SEO. I just work in marketing, It's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
yeah.
So I think let's shift to ads for a second because we've worked together, and specifically LinkedIn ads. What are you seeing people making mistakes with right now? Like blowing money on when you get a new client? What do you look at? What can marketers avoid?
To be honest with you, Ali is the right guy, as you know, to talk about the ads. But we see accounts set up completely improperly almost every single time we audit them. And from well-known like agencies and stuff like that, people will come to us and say, hey, I've been working with X, Y, and Z, and we're not getting results. We got results for the first week, and then they completely died off, and we never saw results again. And we're not sure what's happening, but we're spending $60K a month on our paid media spend, and we're not getting anything back for it. Can you take a look and just let us know if we're doing anything wrong? We'll dive into these accounts, we'll audit them. It'll be clear as day what's actually happening. And then from there, you can make a ton of optimizations. But there's just settings that people are using wrong. Like I said, Ali is really the person to ask. I don't want to speak about ads and say things that I don't know all the answers to. My understanding is more high level than Ali's, for sure. Ali manages our paid media team. But we see ad accounts completely improperly set up all the time when we audit them. Across paid search too. It's not only paid social.
Yeah, that's scary, especially if you have someone in there who you assume has expertise setting it up, and then you realize it's all set up wrong. Okay, I'll ask Ali this next time we chat. So something cool, I want to talk about like your background a little bit. You obviously, we've talked a little bit about you starting as, a personal trainer and helping set up meal plans for the moms in your high school group. But then you went on as like an account executive, right? So let's talk a little bit about your experience there, like working with marketing. What were some of tell me about that.
Well, I have a very unique background for where I am today. It's like very untraditional for sure. So I started off working at Procter & Gamble selling soap, tampons, toothpaste, you name it, like funny things, right? To retailers, selling to Walmart, to Target. And I was like 23 years old selling these $100 million contracts to the biggest retailers in the world. And, thinking that was completely normal. And then, it took a step back and I realized, oh my God, this is like just a masterful marketing company. They're a product company, right? They sell everything. They sell literally everything you can ever think of. Everything that's in your house is probably a P&G product. But
have you ever seen one of those charts where it's like every product you ever known, and then it's down to like 3 companies that make all of it?
P&G, Johnson & Johnson, like, yeah, totally. That's the way the world works. But they're a master in marketing. That's what they do. So I saw all the ways that they, created shelf schematics, the way that they advertised, everything like that. And it got me really fascinated with marketing because at the end of the day, I was building marketing plans. So I was in charge of the home care business at Target in my last role. So I was building shelf schematics at Target for Swiffer. So like if you were walking into the Swiffer aisle at a Target and you see Swiffer dusters, Swiffer wet jet, green Swiffer, they're all designed in a very unique way. The whole point is to play with your shopper psychology, right? It's like, okay, the first thing you're going to see is like what you recognize as Swiffer, the green Swiffer. That's what everyone knows when Swiffer, they think the green Swiffer. So that's the very first thing that you're going to see on the outside of the aisle, right?
I can picture it so clearly in my head right now.
Yeah, exactly. You know it like the back of your hand. Exactly. That's the way it works. But you see the green, and then from there you go in, then you see the purple, you see the Swiffer wet jet. Then you see the Swiffer duster as you go further, and they're color blocked.
The yellow.
So where to find, yeah, exactly. You know exactly where to find them, right? And then you even have like the way you're pricing things. So you'll have the most expensive products that you want people to sell. Not necessarily the most expensive, the most high velocity moving products at eye level. You're short, so maybe not your eye level, but like
not my eye level.
Yeah, for most people's eye level, right? So it's like
I have to get someone to reach the Swiffer, the green Swiffer from the shelf.
But it's like you get there and you see like what they call, so they have like a base tier, a mid tier. Some of the categories they have like a mid to high tier, and then they have like the really high tier products, right? So what you're going to see is like that middle high tier mostly at eye level. So you're trained, like the very first thing you're going to see is that. And then what you do is as you go lower, you have the slightly cheaper products. On the bottom shelf, you have the cheapest, and at the top, you have the highest. But what it does is it trains your shopper psychology to say, okay, this one's pretty expensive, I want that one, but I don't want to spend that much money. I don't want to get the cheap one because I don't want to cheap out. I want good quality. So I'm going to get something in the middle. And you end up getting pretty much high level. So I was doing that for like 2 years in my last role at P&G. And I just thought about the fact that like marketing is really just understanding human beings. That's all it is. And I became fascinated with it. And I went into sales in tech. I was selling tax technology software, which is boring as hell, but it's super important, recession proof. Everyone needs it. And I learned really a lot about technology and, how to sell technology and how buyer psychology works in tech. And then from there, I was like, okay, I love marketing. I've built all of these skills in sales over the last 7 years. Why don't we blend these two things? And Ali and I, so I think you know this about us, but Ali and I were like best friends in high school. We've known each other for 15 years. We were roommates in college. Like Ali is like family. Like we've been super close for literally 15 years. So we tried to start a little agency when we were both working at jobs. Ali was at Metadata, I was at P&G, and we were like, okay, let's start an agency and see where it goes. But we were both working full-time jobs, couldn't actually make anything work. If you don't actually commit, nothing ever happens. Building a business is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but the most rewarding, but it requires a ton of time and commitment. So having a side hustle just never worked out. So we went and did our own things for another, call it 2 years, worked in jobs. And then the opportunity arose for us to try again and commit full time. I had closed a really big deal at my previous company. I had this big commission check, so I had the runway. Ali had a good situation, and we just figured it was a perfect time to start. We have the freedom right now to actually start, take a pay cut temporarily, and see what we can do. Here we are. That's the story.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So in your time selling
SaaS.
Yeah. I love it. I love that you said, you sold tax software. I feel like everyone has to sell something like boring but essential. It's like the biggest challenge. But if you can learn in that environment, the skills you pick up, like my first job marketing in tech and SaaS, I was at Profitwell, and we were selling like retention software and like pricing software to help you optimize your pricing. And making that like sexy and desirable is a big challenge.
It's a totally different style of selling, right? It's like you have to sell on the value of it versus the sexiness of it. With tax technology in particular, it's like, it's almost fear-based. It's like, this is what's going to happen if you get your taxes wrong and the IRS comes for you. Because, you're dealing with companies like Facebook, like Google, these massive companies. There's a tax error. It's going to cost you hundreds of millions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
So
not to mention the bad press.
Exactly. So most companies come inbound in tax technology, but the biggest deals are the ones that come outbound. So like, I can't tell you the name of this company, but there was a gigantic company they do 7 million transactions in Malaysia alone. And they were very interested in Malaysia. That was the catalyst, because Malaysia had this new e-invoicing mandate where they were basically saying like, hey, we don't know how the heck we're going to solve this problem with Malaysia in particular. By the way, we have problems in 14 other countries as well. Can you please help us? And it was like, okay, Malaysia is the catalyst. Let's solve Malaysia first. And then from Malaysia, we'll expand. And that ended up being that deal that allowed me to basically have the freedom. And that came through Outbound. I sent them a message about Malaysia. They were like, oh my God, we have this problem in Malaysia. And I was like, well, I think everyone's going to have this problem in Malaysia. So I figured you guys would. Reached out to them, built the contacts there, and expanded the shit out of it. But it's like, it's not even necessarily about making it sexy. It's about providing the value that they're going to have a peace of mind. They're going to be able to sleep at night knowing they're covered in Malaysia and 14 other countries.
Yeah. Again, smart targeting, because it's like relevant. You knew they were struggling with it. You knew there's probably a pretty good chance that they needed to figure this out sooner rather than later, and it was at the right time.
Totally. And the company I was at was first to market with a solution for the Malaysian e-invoicing mandate. So it's like, okay, no one else has it. Let's talk, Yeah.
So when you started what do you think marketers what do you think the top skills from sales are that marketers should learn? Because I feel like you have a really good mix of both, and having that sales experience and then also going deep into like learning marketing. And I think it's something, especially in B2B, like I would like to learn more sales skills because I'm like a content gal. So what are the things that you've found most valuable?
Persona-based pain. It's like understanding exactly what affects that individual person, not the company, the individual person. At the end of the day, human beings are selfish. They care about themselves first. It's just the way that people are, right? And it's like, whether you love it or hate it, that's the reality. So you have to understand how to relate to that individual person. What's keeping that person up at night? If that person, like for example, I'll use tax technology. If the director of tax at a giant corporation says, oh my God, I might be in the news personally if I get this wrong. It's like, solve for that problem, and then be very specific with your messaging, with your targeting. If you're doing ABM campaigns, it's even easier. But there's a ton of stuff you can do to just make sure they're relevant to that exact persona versus generalizing a message across a company. Hey, Google, looks like you might struggle with this. It's like, no, hey, Danielle at Exit 5, looks like you might struggle with this in particular. I'm sure this is affecting the way you sleep at night. And then you're like, actually, yeah, it is. So let's talk, So I think that's the key that a lot of marketers try to blanket things. They're like, okay, I'm going to create this generalized campaign that I think is going to be really efficient for me. But it's like, you have to constantly be testing. You have to constantly be segmenting, and you have to be able to hear people, understand people, and actively listen to people. I'm talking a lot on this because it's a podcast, but it's like, if you get in a sales call with me, Firefly tells me I do about 20% of the talking in a call. It's like, the point is you want to hear people, understand their pain, understand what keeps them up at night, solve for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Especially the 20% talking. Actually, the newsletter that just went out today, it was about B2B copy. And one of the tips was like, you need to listen way more than you think you do. Let them talk, find those pain points, those key phrases, and that's your gold.
Totally. I got in trouble so many times growing up, and people would tell me, my teachers would always tell me, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you should listen more and talk less. And I just never forgot it. It stuck with me forever. But
I love that. I feel like they tell that to every little kid that has some form of ADD.
I had it bad too. The ADHD was out of control. I would never shut up. So
same.
Yeah.
Except I was more of the daydreamy kind. No, but this was super awesome. Where can people find you? Obviously on LinkedIn, Alex Fine, exactly how it sounds. You guys are at Understory, and you're also going to be a guest on our upcoming event on B2B emails in the cold and outbound section. So I'm super excited about that.
Yep. Yeah. The best place to find me is definitely LinkedIn. I don't have any other socials. I don't exist anywhere. And LinkedIn, hopefully YouTube in the near future, but for now, just LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, we'll keep an eye out for LinkedIn, and thanks for stopping by and sharing your knowledge.
Thanks for having me.